Taking over from where Mariam finished, which we talked a lot about MRI accidents and the potential hazards to MRI. And I think I come at a time where everybody has heard so much about MRI accidents and hazards that it's kind of intimidating and difficult to believe what can be done to make sure that the MRI scans which we are performing on a day-to-day basis can be done safely. So the good news here is that, yes, it is possible to reduce MRI accidents. And as per a study done by Metrosens, 74% of the MRI accidents which have happened could have been avoided or could have been prevented. And 95% of these accidents happened because of burns, because of projectiles, and because of hearing damages, which we've heard so much over the past slides. But these were avoidable. So we'll talk a lot about on-ground practical aspects of what can be done to prevent these accidents, because once it has happened, there's no looking back from there. So I'll also refer to one of the presentations from the Pennsylvania Patient Safety Authority study, where they did a study from 2009 to 2017, and they recorded 1,108 incidents. So these were incidents which were related to devices on or inside the patients. They discussed about the MRI zones in which these accidents happen, and what was the fatality rate or what was the severity of these accidents, and what could have been done to prevent them. The graph over here, you can clearly see that 70% of them happen because of internal objects, which are a little difficult or a little more difficult with respect to the external object to detect. And 30%, more than 30% happen because of external objects. And in that too, 60% were projectile hazards. And projectile hazards is something which most of us present over here are aware of. And like I said before, these are totally avoidable. Just a small look into what were the contributing factors in this study for these accidents to happen. So we have talked a lot about these accidents happening, but what were the factors which led to them? So screening forms were either not designed properly for the institute, or they were not completed properly. They knew about an implant or a medical device on the patient, but there was no time to either do an investigation about the implant or the device, or there was no time to check if it was MR safe or MR conditional. The third category was basically exposure to metal. So there were a lot of people who were working in like metal workers or welders, and there was no preliminary screening done to check if they had some hazard, which could be a potential hazards inside the MRI. The fourth reason, there were internal or external devices on the patient, which the patient either did not know about or the patient did not disclose because of the fear of the consequences of disclosing an implant, which we've discussed earlier as well. And a couple of other reasons, like due to poor recall, the patient does not remember that they have an exposure to metal. And the final one, which is the biggest one, a patient or a non-MR personnel who had come into zone 3 was carrying something ferrous, which they were unaware of. And this is the biggest reason of the projectile hazards which happen inside the MRI. Now, so talking firstly about the projectile hazards, can they be avoided? Yes, 69% of projectile hazards can be avoided and prevented if we implement a 3-step strategy. The first one is implementing a 4-zone model in your MRI facility. The second is using a ferromagnetic detection system to detect ferrous material which is there in your MRI facility. And the third one is labeling all the equipments present in the MRI facility basis on whether they are MR safe, MR conditional, or MR unsafe. And we'll go into each one of these in details. Let me talk about the first one, which is something which can be done in each and every MRI facility, which is making a 4-zone MR facility area. The first zone is basically a general access area, which is open to all public. The second zone is where the MRI patient screening and preparation is done. So this is where I change my patient into scrubs and screen the patient through my screening forms or other ferromagnetic detector systems. And zone 3, which according to me and whatever I've seen based on my practical experience, is actually the zone which is the one which should have the most focus on, because anything ferrous which has entered zone 3 is just a step away from zone 4, which is the danger zone. Because once anything ferrous is in zone 4, there's practically nothing you can do to stop an accident. So zone 3 is something which we should really focus on, and we should have a zone which has restricted access. The restricted access primarily could be through biometrics or through key access, and only personnel who are either trained in MRI extensively and patients who have been screened are allowed in zone 3. In zone 4, only patients who have been fully screened under direct supervision of a trained MRI personnel is allowed. So post zone 2, nobody who has not been screened should be allowed post zone 2, and that is only possible when you have a restricted access to zone 3 and definitely zone 4, which is beyond that. You cannot have a restricted access. This is another thing which has come up a lot in discussion. Can I have a bar for restricted access to zone 4? That is actually not practically possible, because having that could have other complications in case you have an emergency, and that does not work. That could be even fatal. So the best practical way possible is to have a restricted zone 3. And here I would definitely like to point about the Jubilee building, where you have had a very nicely restricted zone 3, and that is the way it should be done. Coming to the next part of labeling, which we have discussed as well a lot. So there's MR safe, MR conditional, MR unsafe. MR safe is something which can be used inside the MRI under all conditions. I would really like to emphasize on what is MR safe. So MR safe is something which is non-ferrous, which is non-magnetic and non-conducting. I repeat, something which is non-ferrous, non-magnetic, and non-conducting. So that is MR safe. MR conditionals are items which can be used inside an MR facility. When I say inside an MR facility, it is inside the zone 4, but they have certain restrictions on how they should be used. And if you're not following those restrictions, you're calling for an accident, definitely. And MR unsafe, something which cannot go inside the MRI zone 4. And as a thumb rule, if there's something which does not have a label, it is considered to be MR unsafe. Without even checking it, you can consider it MR unsafe and not take it inside the MR facility. So coming back to our study on the Pennsylvania study, if you can see over here, they've clearly divided as to what kinds of accidents happen in what zone, or what kinds of incidents happen in what zone. What you can see over here again, 35% of the incidences actually happen in zone 4. And like I mentioned before, if the incidence is happening in zone 4, you are already in the danger zone, because there's nothing you can do to avoid the incident over there. So the best approach from a practical perspective is to avoid coming to a stage where an incident happens in zone 4. Now, how do you do that? And here's my answer to how we do that. So there is a ferromagnetic detection system which should be put on the door of your MRI, which is zone 3. And this system should be detecting any ferrous material which is approaching the MRI. So when I say approaching the MRI, we are not detecting something which is already inside the MRI, but what is approaching the MRI door should be detected by this ferromagnetic detector system. And even as per ACR guidelines, this is what should happen. The drift should be detected before it enters zone 4. So when it is approaching zone 4. And the ferromagnetic detector systems work in a way that the amount of ferrous content, as it increases in the object you're carrying, the detection range kind of increases from there as well. Something as big as a wheelchair, which has a lot of ferrous content, would be detected at a longer distance from the MRI door. So I'll also give you some examples of what works and what does not work. So if we talk about if you see the picture on the left-hand side, the detector system is on the door of an outswing MRI system. Now, the system does not work till the time the door has not been opened, and you cannot practically see if what I'm carrying towards the MRI is ferrous or non-ferrous. So something like this will not work inside your MRI facility. What you need is the picture on the right with something which is outside the MRI on the door of the MRI, so that when I'm approaching the MRI, it is easily detected if I'm carrying something ferrous. Again, coming to the main points of this, it has to be on the door, whether for an in-swing or for an outswing door. It has to detect the ferrous hazard much before it has reached zone 4. And it should have a recording system. Now, the recording system is very critical and very good, because after an accident has happened, there's always a discussion of what could have been done to avoid the accident. So both from a perspective of a root cause analysis and from a training perspective, it is important to have a recording system which can record the accidents so that you can avoid those accidents in future. Again, a couple of examples of what works and what does not work. So on the right-hand side is definitely me. And as you can see, I'm standing very close to the door, and I'm actually carrying a laptop bag. And a lot of pockets on my in my jacket which have some ferrous stuff, but the indicator still shows green. So this does not work because I've already reached a point where I'm just about to enter the MRI. So while you're approaching the MRI, it should detect the hazards. And the one which is my favorite is the picture on the right. So we do have a detector system, but beyond the detector system, as you can see, is a storage. And that storage is being used to store all kinds of materials, all kinds of cylinders, all kinds of accessories. Now, the point is, if something is taken beyond this and stored over there, what stops anybody from just opening that door and taking something which could be ferrets inside the MRI? So this is something you have to take care that the detection should be on the door and there should not be any storage material inside or after the detection system. And our favorite topic of the day is about implants and detection of implants. Now, there are so many implants we've talked about, and there is a huge list of implants on MRIsafety.com website, which talks about all the implants and whether they are conditional, whether they are safe. But actually finding about an implant from there is actually looking for a needle in a haystack. So it is better to have a system in place which helps me determine if an implant has ferrous content or not, rather than going by the word of some technician or going by the word of the doctors or trying to find about the implant. And that is kind of achieved by another set of ferromagnetic detection systems, which are specifically made for detection of implants. So the patients screen around the ferromagnetic detector system, and if they have any kind of implant which has ferrous content, that will be detected by the ferromagnetic detector system. And it definitely helps in improving your efficiency of your MRI system, because a lot of times you're doing an MRI scan and between the scan, you find out that the patient has an implant or the patient is feeling any kind of discomfort because of an implant, and that has to be stopped. And in government hospitals or hospitals like Tata, where you're using the MRI throughout the day, you really don't want to do that and definitely get a bad name because of any accidents which happen because of implants. So it is actually much more convenient to detect the ferrous content, and based on the detection, the clinicians, and like we've also talked, it is the call of the radiologist whether you assess the risks associated and the benefits, and you take a call of whether you want to do the scan or you do not want to do the scan. Again, what works and what does not work from a practical perspective, we have seen a lot of handheld metal detectors, and these do not work for the simple reason that the amount of ferrous content in an implant is so less that a normal metal detector will not be able to detect it. So you need something very specific to detect the implant, and it takes a lot of time to detect. And a metal detector also detects all sorts of metals. So something like a gold or a silver, which is not a projectile hazard, you can avoid detecting that from a projectile hazard perspective, but a metal detector will detect it. And that is what causes an alarm fatigue. And most of the times you've seen in practical day-to-day experiences that you just scan it and you just let the patient go. Because in India, jewelry custom is very prominent, and somebody or the other will be wearing gold and silver, which is not a hazard. But in that process, you're actually letting a lot of ferrous detection also go by, which should be avoided. And that's why we say it is important to have a system which specifically detects implants. And even more important for government hospitals or hospitals like Tata, where you have patients from all categories, and most of the times patients are not even aware that they have an implant, or they had an implant which was done many years ago and they've probably forgotten about it. Coming to the second category of the hazards is the auditory damage. And this is actually the most easiest to overcome. And we've practically discussed why is it most easiest to overcome, because the way to overcome is to just provide hearing aids or hearing protection to the patient and any attendant who's accompanying the patient if they are inside the MRI room. But I'll take a minute to discuss about what works and what does not work. So we definitely have specific products which are designed to cancel out gradient noise inside an MRI. And those are the ones which should be used inside an MRI. So you've seen over the head products or earplugs which can be used inside the MRI, and they're proven to be safe to be used inside the MRI. What does not work is putting cotton inside the ears of the patient, because the noise levels are way too high to prevent noise cancellation for that inside the MRI. And definitely another topic is reducing MRI accidents by burns. So as we discussed, these are the kind of incidences which are not normally reported, but there are a lot of incidences of burn which are happening globally. And 94% of these incidences can be avoided. And there are very simple ways to avoid these incidences. Putting a 1 centimeter air padding between the patient and the coil and the bore or the coil, and basically removing any electrical conductors from the patient. So the electrical conductors are basically cables from a lot of your monitoring devices, and you have to remove these or either insulate these, and protecting any skin to skin contact, and specifically, like we said, protecting any loop formation inside the bore for the patient. Deep diving a little bit more about the MRI burns, I would definitely like to talk about a couple of other points. The electrodes, which are also a cause of MRI burns. We need to ensure that carbon fiber electrodes are used inside the MRI and not the normal metal electrodes. And the electrodes need to be placed together. The reason for that is the ECG cables, which are one of the biggest reasons of forming loop while monitoring an MRI patients, they do not need to be placed very far apart inside an MRI scanning. And when you're placing the electrodes together, you're practically ensuring that no loops are formed by the ECG cables. So you're avoiding any loop formation and avoiding potential burns. And like I said, ECG leads, they have to be as short as possible and braided if possible. So the braided loops also help avoid, braided cables also help avoid forming any loops on the patient. And since we are using a lot of monitoring devices now, there are a lot of conductive leads which come outside the MRI, but you have to make sure they're coming out linearly from the MRI, and they have to be insulated to ensure there's no loop forming or no contact with the patient from those leads. Avoid cross limbs wherever possible. Check for the patient if the patient has had a tattoo. Now, there are lots of talks about tattoos as to what is allowed and what is not allowed, but it is important to check the tattoo. Dark ink tattoos, tattoos which are forming loops are potential hazards and should be avoided. Again, a call needs to be taken based on the placement of the tattoo and the scan you're doing. But it is good to have information about that tattoo and where it is placed and how recent the tattoo has been. And always change the patient into scrubs, because once you've changed the patient into scrubs, and we have discussed it initially earlier as well, there are a lot of antimicrobial garments which are now available, which have silver linings, and silk, which is very common in India, has gold linings. So it is, which are conductors. So it is very important to change the patient into scrubs from the hospital to avoid all those burns. Again, a list of do's and don'ts. Like I mentioned, you try to use braided ECG electrodes, ECG cables, carbon ECG electrodes, and ensure that there is no loop formation happening and there's a clear insulation between the patient and the bore, or between the patient and the coils. Other MRI issues, some of which are not very prominent, but still do happen. So we definitely talked about claustrophobia, and there are actually equipments available to prevent that. So there's an MRI entertainment system which is available, which can help limit the problems the patient has due to claustrophobia, which include an INBO system or an MRI music system which can be installed, or MRI skylights which make the MRI look much more pleasing, especially for pediatrics and aged patients. MRI compatible equipments. Now, there are almost all equipments which are MRI compatible are now available for a 3 Tesla compatible MRI. And it's the information about that which is lacking, or the awareness about which is lacking, which needs to come, and which will help us ensure that all our facilities have MRI compatible equipments. And what is important over there is also that we need to follow a protocol for training of our MRI personnel, especially in case of emergency. Now, it has been seen that when an emergency happens, most of the people grab whatever is closely available and rush inside an MRI, which could be MR compatible or not MR compatible. So to avoid all those accidents, it is important to follow a protocol or form a protocol and inform all my level 1 and level 2 MRI personnel about those protocols, so that they can follow that protocol and try to avoid accidents in an emergency situation. So this is a list of all MRI compatible products. I would not say all, this is a list of a few MRI compatible products which are available, and much more are available which can be safely used inside an MRI. I think there had been a lot of information which I have provided on the do's and don'ts, and it kind of is very daunting to imagine how it is possible to follow all this. So in short, I will give you a 3P approach to make a safer MRI environment. The first in that approach is the process. Like I said, there has to be a clear documented process for everything that happens inside an MRI room, where the patient will be seated, where the patient will be screened, where the patient will be changed, who are the people who are allowed inside, who are the people who will be responsible for emergency situation. And all these processes have to be documented, and all the people around need to know about these processes. Then people definitely form a core of every organization. So we should ensure that our people are well trained and they know about about the hazards and how to overcome those hazards. And third P is the place, where we talk a lot about the MRI compatible equipment. So I should make sure that my place or my MRI facility is so that we have minimal ferrous content in zone 3, and my zone 4, which is where my MRI is, should be actually ferrous free. The next steps, what are the next steps which we can follow, or rather I would say what are the first steps we should do to ensure that we have an MRI safe environment. So safety and screening, documented checklist, which should be comprehensive but concise. So we definitely cannot have an 8 or 10 pages screening procedure for busy facilities like Tata or any other government hospitals. So you have to have a checklist which should be documented and which should be specific to your particular hospital. And methods to ensure restricted access to magnetic field area, specifically to zone 3, which has to be controlled, and the access to that zone has to be restricted to only level 1, level 2, and screened MRI patients. Identify the MRI equipments required inside your MRI, and you should label all these equipments under the 3 guidelines of MR safe, MR conditional, and MR unsafe. Staff education, induction and training of the staff of all disciplines. So a lot of times our MRIs are used definitely by the radiologists and the technicians, but by other disciplines as well, specifically anesthesia doctors. And those doctors need to be trained as well, because they are not aware of the potential hazards of an MRI. So we need to make sure that anesthesia doctors who are accessing the MRI facility will be trained as well. Then risk assessment basis your facility. So how is my facility? What are the potential risk areas, like zoning wise, what are the risk areas? Equipment wise, what are the risk areas? Storage wise, what are the risk areas? So we should do a risk assessment specific to my facility. And policies and procedures specifically for emergencies like cardiac arrest or quenching. So all these need to be documented, and people in the MRI should be aware of those, and they should be told about that. How can we help? So we basically take an initiative of organizing MRI trainings and MRI safety checklists for your particular hospitals, and talk about MRI safety as well. So we can help you provide that for your particular hospitals as well. And this is my final slide, and one of my most favorite slides, where I say that MRI safety basically begins with you, and you have to be smart. You have to screen the patients for MRI safety. You have to remember that the magnet is always on. You have to have acoustic protection and monitoring of the patients. You have to have RF field protection, which is your burn protection. And you have to have, the most important one, you have to have training for your MRI staff, where they're trained about all the hazards and the ways to avoid those hazards. I think that's my last slide, and thank you so much for your time. And I hope this information was helpful for you. Thank you.